Okay, welcome to another quick little training video. This one's not going to be quite so quick, I would assume. We're going to do quotations for this little video. So, quotations range from very simple, very quick, to quite lengthy, quite detailed, quite involved items that you need to do. So I'll start off with the simple. I'll then get you to do some practice runs on that, make sure you understand how to do all of that. Then we'll move on to the more complex and adding different remark lines, separator lines, all that sort of stuff further down the track. So first of all, when you're doing a quote, obviously you're going to need to know a customer name. So it's either going to be an existing customer or a new customer. We all know how to create a customer, we've already done that. So we're just going to search for a customer. Helps if I select it first. So test, select the customer we want, and it fills down. So now I'm going to need to search for an item. I've spoken to the customer. They're after just a couple of polo shirts with their logo on their left hand chest. So this is your stock standard run-of-the-mill quote. Very easy, very quick. All you have to do is find the garment that they're after. So you would have shown them something in a catalogue or by the internet or in your showroom. So we select search items. When this screen pops up, we can then select the garment that they're after. Here we go. So my customer was after a price on the JB's 210 Polo and the Cutex Gelato Polo. So the JB's 210 Polo, that's the style code 210. So I select the 210 Polo. Let's go back a step. If you notice this, I've typed in 210. It's brought up every single item that's got 210 in it. Just like with your customers, it narrows down the search a little bit for you. Now this 210, it's a fitted flat peak cap. So I just look at the catalogue that it's associated with. First of all, it's a cap, so it's not a shirt, so it's a fairly good giveaway that it's not the one I'm after. But this one, 210 JB's 210 Polo, it's apparel, and it's from Tesco, which is exactly what I'm after. So I select the one that is most appropriate. We're just going to go for 5 black polos. So I select the quantity, size, and the colour, and once I'm done, I press add. It then adds it to my quote. Now, as I said, they need the logo on the left hand chest, so we're going to go embroidery. So I select the embroidery needle, I add logo or whatever. Depends on how you've set up your embroidery section in your system. Yours might have a completely different terminology in there, but I'm just going to add a fairly standard logo on the left hand chest. Nothing special about it. So that has now added my embroidery onto the quote. 5 shirts, 5 embroideries, 1 setup fee. So I now need to tell the system where I'm going to put this embroidery. So it is chest left. So we always have to remember that the production people very rarely speak to the customer. So we need to give them as much information as possible. So we've got our logo embroidery on our left hand chest. And next thing we do is we want to amortize the price. We don't want we don't want the customer to be able to see that our shirt's $18 and we're charging them $10 to embroider it. So I tick this little box here at the end, the FX or amortize button, and I always do that on the decoration line. So that adds the decoration to the garment. The next thing I'm going to do, just helps set that a little bit more neatly, is click and drag the logo setup to the top of the quote. There you have it, nice and simple. that's my quotation done. There's not really a whole lot more I can put in this quotation except for a contact name, number. I'm going to need to put a description in, but if there are some random notes, there might be 2 different logos or something like that that you put in. You can put your notes down here that will also print out. For this one, there's nothing special, so we'll leave that blank. It's very straightforward, but they also wanted a price for the gelato polo, so we search and add another item, and I don't know the code for the gelato, so I'm not going to go style like, I'm going to say description like. It's a gelato, so there it is, and we're going to go black, 5 large again, and then it will add the price on. So again, I'm just going to drop the embroidery underneath the gelato, and you see here it's got 10 embroideries now because we've got 10 shirts in the order. Now I'm just going to leave it as 10 embroideries. You might want to change that yourself. I'm going to leave it as is because that's actually adding the price in together. If you don't want it to say 10 embroideries, you untick that, and we change this to, we right click on it and we unsync. And now we'll need to tell it how many embroideries we're doing. 5. The only problem with doing this is now we're showing the customer how much our embroidery is. What you can do is just manually add it in and change that to 28.86 and 32.8 and 0. You can manually do that. It's very simple. It's a little less confusing for a customer because they're going to, quite often they'll say, oh, but I'm only getting 5 shirts, I don't want 10 embroideries. It's personal preference, it's up to you. As I said, when you're setting out all these descriptions here, you want to make it as unambiguous as possible. You don't want the customer to have to ask questions. In this scenario, you can always explain that to the customer when you give them the quote, that don't worry about the quantity of the embroideries, it's saying 10 because I've got 2 options of shirts for you. But if you want to take out any question of doubt, just manually change the prices like we've done there. Okay, so that's how you would do a quote for 2 items. Then in the description I would put polo quote, because that's what it is, it's a polo quote. Now what we have to do is we have to save this document, and you'll see this changes from new to a number. There we go. Now we either have to print or email this document to be able to hand it over to the customer face to face, or we're going to email it to them. So either or, I need to print it. So we go print. Sorry, my system is a little bit slow at the moment. Now with the printing, I recommend any good size order, you should try and hand deliver the quote. Obviously it's not always possible. You've got them interstate, they might be a long way away, so that's fine. But if you're going to email it, always give them a follow-up phone call to make sure they got the email, and you can try and answer any objections right away. If you leave it 2 or 3 days, well, they might not have got it, someone else might have given them a quote first, that quote might have gone through to their junk mail, and you've lost the opportunity for that job. So if you get an email, always follow up straight away with a phone call just to make sure they got it. Then follow up the next day or the day after to see what their thoughts were on the quote, because quite often they haven't even bothered looking at it yet. They just need to know that it was in their inbox. Okay, so Now if I'm going to print it, it's very simple. Just hit print, and it will bring up another screen where I then have to hit print again. Terribly sorry about the speed of this. There we go. You select your printer and you'd hit print, and it will print out the document. Now, you can email this document straight from here to the customer. I don't particularly like doing that. If you are going to do that, I would do it via your own email program. Don't do it through EMEBoss. If you do it through EMEBoss, you've got no proof that it's sent. You can't go back and find it later. If you're going to do it, open my own email program and do manual PDF attachment. But again, I don't really see the point in doing this. I much prefer, just through experience and all the programs I've used over the years, most of the ones we email from within the program, every so often they get lost. It's much more reliable just to create a PDF, so export to PDF, save it on your desktop or in a quote file somewhere on your computer, open your Outlook, email it through Outlook. It takes 10-20 seconds longer, but then it's in your sent items. You can always retrieve it. It's just easier and a bit safer. So it's a more bulletproof method of emailing a quote. That's my recommendation. You don't have to follow it. You can do whatever you like, but as I said, it's just through experience that I've noticed that every so often they do go walkabout when you email from within a program. And it's not just EMEBoss. I've used a lot of programs over the years that exactly the same thing happens. So then this is create a PDF, and from here I would just actually save it as a PDF. Wow, my computer is really not happy today. Okay, so save as PDF. And save it anywhere on your computer. So I'd save it to your desktop as a whatever. Cool. So that's how to do a nice, simple, straightforward quote. Once that's done, you just close all the screens, and we're done with this one. So next, I'm going to create a new item. Got another customer in here that needs a quote, so I hit new document. I don't need to close this one first and then go back to sales screen and then new. Just create a new one over the top, and it's going to be to test customer 1 again. And this time it's a bit more complicated. So I'm going to want some shirts and some caps. So I need to go to add items again. He's really not happy today. Okay, so add items. Then we go, they like the 210 polo, as you'll notice, so do I. It's pretty easy. So 5 of those, and they also want some caps. So stock standard cap 4199. just want their logo on everything. So I'm going to go to embroidery, and we're going to add their embroidery. What you need to keep in mind, and that's the only reason that this gets a little bit more complicated, is that cap embroidery and t-shirt embroidery is very different. You're hooping them up on different items. It takes a little bit longer to hoop a cap than it does a shirt. You've got to change over your entire machine to cap setting if you want to embroider your caps. There's a big changeover, so you don't want to just go, cool, I'm getting 10 embroideries, cool, 10 embroideries, 5 shirts, 5 caps. You want to separate those embroideries. Some people are going to charge slightly more for their embroideries. At this level, it's not really going to make a huge difference, but quite often, if you were embroidering 25 garments or 50 garments, you'd give them a bit better price for their embroidery. So you don't want to just discount the caps as well, because, well, that's a very different item. It's not just continuing the run, and the reason why you give them a discount for bigger runs is because it's just nice and smooth and seamless. Production keeps flowing, but if you've got to stop everything and change it all over, it's like a 15-20 minute changeover. There we go. So we've got our setup. We've got our shirts, we've got our caps, we've got our logo embroidery. Now at this level you can get away with just saying, okay, yep, that's everything. But as I'm saying, when you get a larger quantity, so say you had 50 shirts and still only had maybe 10 caps, well, you don't want to give him the 50, you don't want to give him a discounted price for his cap embroidery, because he hasn't really done enough to justify it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in a separated line, and I'm going to separate the caps from the shirts. So the caps are $4.20, so the markup on this cap is a little bit too low at the moment. It's costing you $1.75. You should be selling it for about $7-8. So if I do this at 50, I'm going to give them $8 embroidery at a 50 quantity. So I'll amortize that. So I don't want to give them $8 embroidery for their 5 or 10 caps. It's too low. I'm going to keep that at the standard embroidery price. I'll delete the setup because they've already charged the setup fee. I'm going to tell just left for the logo embroidery on the shirts, and it is cap front for the caps. But if we look at that, again, that's just far too cheap for the caps, so we'll manually change the price and then we'll amortize it. $17, $24. I mean, it's not a huge difference, it's $2 here and there, but look at the end of the day, that's $20 more profit you made on that job. And that $20 profit pays for the 20-minute downtime in your production room. That's the way you've got to look at it, and you've just got to keep that sort of stuff in mind when you're doing this. If we didn't put this separated line in, all this stuff joins together. It gets a bit messy. So if I delete that separated line, I've got 120 embroideries. If you notice, 2 lots of embroidery, and it's syncing it to everything. It's going, alright, these embroideries are getting put on everything, which isn't actually the case. We're embroidering a logo on the shirt and we're embroidering a logo on the cap. But they're 2 different things, so that's why we need to put the separated line in, because it divides the system. Okay? Again, we then need to save it, cap and polo quote, save, and again you'll notice that these numbers change. So they're the most basic to then a slightly more upgraded version of a quote. In the next one I will do a bit more of a complicated one and some promotional items. Bit more to think about with these next ones, but just give those two a go now. And if you've got any questions, give me a call on 0433 753 855 or shoot me an email at nsharples@ufgcorp.com.au. Good luck with that. Just remember there's two ways to search, via style code or description. Just remember to put those two in the right fields, and the separator line is your friend.